Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another evening with the Virtual Tasting Society. Tonight, we are joined by Alex Martin and Bruce Joseph from Hirsch and Old Potrero. Gentlemen.
All right. Good afternoon, evening, y'all. I kind of feel it's Thursday. Brain cells aren't firing all the time. Anyway, Bruce and I are very excited to be here with y'all to taste Old Potrero and Hirsch. Just as a little bit of an introduction, my name is Alex Martin, as Jane so kindly introduced me. I'm the Associate Brand Manager on American Whiskeys, so that covers both Hirsch and Old Potrero. I'm in place of Kevin Aslan, our head distiller on Hirsch, because Kevin is out in market, unfortunately, and could not make it. So any questions revolving around distillation processes, I'm going to defer to Bruce because Bruce is our master distiller. And Bruce, I will hand it off to you. Just as an introduction to yourself, and then we can jump into
Hi, I'm Bruce Joseph. I'm the master distiller at Hodling and Company. And that's about it. I mean,
Bruce, stop being so modest.
In way of introduction, that's about all I've got.
Yeah, just as a short little that Bruce has been in the alcohol spirits industry since he started in 1980 in brewing, and then transitioned into distilling in 1993, starting with Old Potrero. He received the Discus award in June 15th for achievement, and it's really a great honor that we were able to celebrate with him. So if you have any questions, he can match any knowledge about distillation and any type of yeast or anything else along those lines better than I have ever heard any distiller going on a tour.
And if I don't know it, I'll make it up. So we're good.
All right. So just starting with Hirsch, I figure I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. Does anyone have any prior experience tasting Hirsch or have heard of the brand before? Just out of curiosity. I see Jordan. I would say maybe speak up so I can maybe see.
It was Jordan and Michael. Michael's got a bottle up in front of the camera.
Oh, awesome.
One of my bottles, yeah.
Oh, is that the 6-year-old or is that the new?
Yeah, no, it's a 6. This one's actually older than 6 technically, but yeah.
No, fantastic. Love hearing that. No, so just as a little background for the rest of everyone online, Hirsch has been around since 1974. The founder of Hirsch was a German immigrant banker, A.H. Hirsch. His real name is like Adolf H. Hirsch, but typically known because Adolf is not a common name anymore. So we'll just call it like that. But after he made a significant amount of his fortune in Chicago, decided to get into distilling, where he went to one of the old original Michter's distilleries in Middle Pennsylvania, and basically distilled 400 barrels. What makes this whiskey unique is the fact that a lot of big names were actually connected to the distillation of this group of barrels. One of the Pappy Van Winkle bloodline members was involved with the distillation. So it kind of grew upon that name and kind of connections with other well-known distillers at the time. So distills 400 barrels 1974, and then they literally forget about it until 1990 when they decide that, oh, we have these unknown barrels, and decides to go bottle them. Most of those barrels went to Asia, and then there's a book that was written around 2010 2011 where individuals were able and started hearing about the history of Hirsch and went back to try and find some of these Hirsch 16-year-old reserve that were still out in market. And if you were able to find one of these bottles at retail price at the time, you basically struck gold. Average price of an Hirsch 16-year-old reserve right now is about $8,000 a bottle. So some people made out like bandits, basically finding this stuff. But what we have in front of you today, just starting off, is our first iteration, or some people call it the teal label, is the Horizon. So the Horizon is our straight bourbon, distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. It's a combination of two bourbons, typically a high rye in the 4% component. It's a 96% to 4% ratio. Typically, just some of the tasting notes that come up are, backbone of a vanilla, some caramel, some smoke will come through, as well as a dry, short finish.
This is really awesome. I got just this giant pop of cinnamon followed by that caramel right afterwards. It's like, this is really good.
Yeah, we typically, some of the things that makes Hirsch unique is, we've technically been sourcing since 1974 in our founding, and our big three ethoses that we follow are, we're all about transparency. I know that if you look at the back of our bottle, I'm going to use my gold bottle. You'll see the mash bill on the back, and that is across every single bottle, every single SKU, because we believe that with the internet and everyone being more aware of how of what goes into whiskey, we're proud enough of our liquid that we want you to know what is in the bottle.
You said something about sourcing. Do you have like everything comes from one place? You get it from a bunch of places?
So we will partner with a variety of distilleries. Like I said, we have a partner in Indiana, and then the Bivouac, which y'all will taste next, is through a partnership with Bardstown. So we're very comfortable with that. The ethos, again, the third ethos is we never settle, in the sense that we are always on the lookout for different crafts and styles of whiskey. We don't believe that we need to be geographically limited in or where we actually make whiskey.
Is there a flavor profile you're going for? Like with sourcing coming from different places, the idea to have sort of like the teal, is that going to be your entry level that you try to keep consistent, or will it change over the years? I mean, I'll be very honest, I hadn't heard of it until I think I got 2 bottles of the 6 year, whatever that was, 2 years ago. And then I've seen a couple others, the Mizunara, and I'm excited to try the Bivouac. I'm a big Jawbreaker fan for anyone who likes Bay Area punk rock, and that was sort of their second album. So I wanted to get that, so I'm excited to try that, but I'm liking this and I just hadn't tried it, so I'm wondering what the concept is moving forward.
Yeah, so with Hirsch, we typically little bit of some extra tangent background, but it'll come back into it. Each one of our batches that we will produce is roughly about 100 to 150 barrels, and the flavor profile, we understand, will consistently have that, or will have that same consistent backbone of a vanilla, caramel, smoke, and a short dry finish. But as these barrels and batches come, you might have more prominence of one flavor over another, but we always strive to keep that backbone consistent. So whether you have a bottle from like batch 2 and then you try batch number 5, you might get more nuanced flavors from one to another, but we typically try and keep it consistent. And we see the Horizon as a good entry level, but something that will fit, we believe, a variety of palates. Like I drink it both in cocktails, on the rocks, and neat. So we wanted to create an all-around bourbon that we saw as something that was robust, but also delicate enough and could fulfill a lot of roles.
No, I definitely see that at $40 at 96. I mean, those are 3 good price points, 3 good points, I gotta say.
No, thank you.
I meant to ask you, a lot of us have multiple glasses. Do you think it would be wise to pre-pour everything or just pour as we go?
That is up to you. I'm gonna let y'all be the captains of your own ships at that point. So Jane, I'm gonna let you kind of MC on like when I should move on to the next expression, because I don't want to rush anyone, but I also want to, let Bruce shine since he is the master distiller and full of knowledge.
That's totally fair. Some days we like to get super nerdy and some days we just want to drink. So,
well, if you want to get super nerdy, Bruce is the person to get all the nerd questions out, because he'll definitely be able to provide better answers than I will.
Super nerdy and drinking aren't mutually exclusive.
that's quite true. We do it pretty much on a regular basis now. So,
All right. Well,
unless you want to add something, shall we move on to the bivouac?
All right, I'll take silence as a yes. So the bivouac just has a little bit of a background that was released during Bourbon Heritage Month last year. It is our first Kentucky bourbon at 100 proof. In a similar vein as the Horizon, this is a blend of 2 mash bills. One unique characteristic about the bivouac itself is the mash bill for the 95% is actually based off of the A.H. Hirsch 60-year-old reserve mash bill. So we get to harken back to that heritage in itself. As I said, it comes in at 100 proof, our first Kentucky bourbon, distilled in Bardstown, Kentucky, the world headquarters of bourbon, bourbon across the planet. Notes that I typically will get as well, working with Kevin, are this expression has more of a high malted barley compared to the Horizon, which has the high rye. It is still very light and delicate, but you'll get a full mouthfeel. It's very rich. I typically get a sweetness of honey and peanut.
Yeah, I'm sort of getting biscuits and baking spice.
Yep. I think Kevin told me, I would say consistently we've been told that there's an allspice in there that really shines through, but this expression really hits the classic notes of a American bourbon through and through.
Yeah, no, this is also quite fun. It is a hair lighter than the Horizon. I kind of was surprised. I thought it would have been a little bit stronger, but
well, that will probably come from the high rye content on the Horizon. Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong. The rye component in the high rye and the Horizon is more associated with that spice, correct?
yeah. And yes. I think one thing too that you know, the Hirsch whiskeys are sourced, and one of the major differences that's happened for our company is kind of a transition of acquiring aged whiskey to where we're kind of transitioning to a point where we're doing new make, that you know, we kind of call the shots for the mash bill and the yeast, the barrels, etc. And so the sourced whiskey in the bivouac, it reflects the thing of us creating, you know, from new spirit. So there's a little difference there, but I think overall, just for all the Hirsch brands, you know, we're kind of inspired by the you know, the original Hirsch whiskey, and in our view, it is a balanced whiskey, and I think that's one thing that we thought was really beautiful about the A.H. Hirsch is it does have a real balance, and we like the mouthfeel, and I think that's something that runs through both the Horizon and the Bivouac.
This is lovely. I don't know if you guys are catching the chat. There's some nice things in there.
What do you say?
We tend to either be super chatty on the actual screen, or we're super chatty in the chat. Tonight looks like it's veering towards the chat. Michael says it's very fruit forward on the nose. Damone says it's light but spicy. Michael said buttery and some nice baking spice. As much as I love MGP, I think I like this more. There's a slightly bitter fruit thing going on that keeps it interesting. And I said it was reminiscent of shortcake before you pile on the strawberries. And
Damon, I could just barely hear you. You kind of sounded, you know, very far off in a tunnel.
yeah, Damone had talked for us.
Damone, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that way you're caught up on chat now.
Oh no, thank you. I appreciate
Sure.
it.
That's,
They're both very, very drinkable, and none taste young to me at all. They're both really, they're real crushable in a great way, and very versatile. I see what you're saying with both. You could do it neat, you could do it on the rocks, you did in a cocktail.
Yeah, one of just speaking of cocktails and something that's really easy to make. We've been using a lot for events like Whiskey X. It's called a fancy free. So 2 ounces of the Horizon, about 3/4 of an ounce from Luxardo Maraschino cherry liqueur, orange bitters, and Angostura aromatic bitters. It's basically a take on an old fashioned, but it's something that, you know, you can kind of cleanse the palate, because if you go out, you want something that's whiskey based, but if you're at a whiskey fest, maybe cleanse it for a little bit.
super awesome. Okay, anybody else have any other questions about Bivouac?
That's good. Very good. I like it more than I thought I would, considering I'm a big MGP head, but it's really good.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, I shouldn't be taking the credit. I didn't do anything. I just market it.
It's all right. You're allowed to take some credit tonight.
I'll take the minuscule of, like, I was helping launch it. That's it.
That works. All
All right. Should we move on to the single barrel double oak?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So just a little background on this. This was distilled in Bardstown, Kentucky. My God, I can't talk right now. And it's been double barreled in new American oak and finished in used American oak barrels. In total, there were only 30 barrels released. And we see this as a testament to Hirsch's ongoing legacy and journey of setting new standards of excellence for American whiskey. Basically, again, this is also paying homage to the age her 16-year-old gold foil. And we began this bottle. There are actually three ratios, if you will, involved. So there is, all of them have 8-year at the high point. So it's either 90% 8 years, 7 months, and then 10% 3 years and 7 months, a 92% to 8%, or a 95 to 5%. I believe I sent y'all the 92.8. Jane, if you have the bottle, oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, my turn to be on mute. I do not, I just have my sample. It's
Oh, okay.
3.85. So 126, 127 something.
No, I'm talking about the ratio.
Oh, the ratio. Okay, well, that I don't have at all. So
Oh, okay, yeah. But yes, basically, we took in this expression itself, the most of it is a 72 corn, 13 rye, 15% malted barley that was aged 8 years and 7 months, with the lower younger portion to be 74% corn, 18% rye, and 8% malted barley. The addition of the extra used barrel was to add some softer notes into it itself. From a nose perspectives, and this is tasting off of one specific barrel, and obviously barrels differ. We got charred vanilla, oak, some hints of leather and allspice. And on the palate, again, honey, some brown sugar, additional like vanilla with a lingering crisp and heat.
it's hilarious because I smell dill in the glass.
You smell what?
Dill.
Oh,
I'm just like, okay. But I did get, like, it's got a really buttery mouthfeel, and I got that honey and brown sugar off the palate. It just, I don't always smell the same things that everybody else smells. So
oh no, no one's.
don't mind me with the weird stuff. So
Well, Bill, after you said it.
Yeah, I gotta say, this one's great. And I poured it next to the 6-year, one of the 6 years that I had. And right off the bat with the nose, you can tell that the double oak influence really did round it out a little bit. It's much softer on the nose. I haven't tried them side by side yet, but it's very good. I had a question on the 2 mash bills used. Are you sourcing from 2 different places for this one? 2 different distilleries?
Bruce, you're closer with the minute details of that. Could you
Yes.
take that one?
There's the quick answer.
That's fair. I know of one that's a heavy rumor, but can't be confirmed. The other one, I'm guessing maybe Bardstown as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a very good partnership with Bardstown. As Bruce mentioned, one of the things that makes Hirsch unique is with these partnerships, we're growing to the point where, as Bruce mentioned, we're providing them the mash bill that we would like to be made. So in a way, we don't have to supply the facility and the rack house, but we can work with a distillery that will work with us and work to our specs, which is a fantastic position to be in.
Thank you
Guys
for
hear me
answering the
okay?
question I hadn't yet asked.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for answering the question I hadn't yet asked you, because I just was thinking, oh, I gotta ask you if you guys get them to make your mash bill as you like it, or if you're just picking stuff. So it's
Yeah,
actually kind of cool.
That was the exciting part about our relationship with Bardstown Bourbon is, oh, how many years? It's 2023. You know, when we first got involved with them, it was probably about 5 years ago. So it was real nice because Hirsch, for our company, you know, like I said, has traditionally been sourcing aged whiskey. And, you know, it was real nice for us getting into it where we're actually making new make at Bardstown, and that we can control, you know, all the different variables for the whiskey. And do different mash bills too. You know, we're not just doing one mash bill there.
That's pretty cool.
I want to say the single barrel I poured is 136.2 proof, so that might be a factor.
Add water.
Yeah, no, those 6-year-old bottles, they typically were run pretty hot. We still have a couple left in storage. And when I was doing some clean out, I think the hottest or the highest proof that we had still in storage is 138.8. And I think the lowest is about 131. But yes, I actually had a neighbor that had never heard of Hirsch, and since I live next to him, decided to do a tasting, and he wasn't accustomed to a high proof bourbon, so it was a fun night for him.
I bet. Damon was asking, is there a difference between Hirsch single barrel and Horizon single barrel?
We didn't actually make a Horizon single barrel.
How it's listed when I look to purchase. Look, Jane and them will tell you when we on these meetings, I go to it and try to buy everything like right away when I like it.
Yeah.
And can you guys hear me okay?
You sound a little distant, but
Just barely.
yeah.
So it's new computers.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Much
Much
better.
better.
We'll try without the headphones for a little bit. Trying to be nice. My wife is in another room watching TV. But yeah, so when I looked it up to try to get it, it came up as Hirsch Horizon single barrel. But then that was a barrel select also, so I don't know if that made a difference.
Bruce, is that referring to the 6-year-old single barrel, do you believe?
Oh, hell, I don't know. No, you know, I'm not sure. Is this like an online retailer?
Yeah, is that Total Wine?
Yeah, they might have just, you know, thrown Horizon on as a descriptor on the single barrel, but the single
Got it.
barrel doesn't say Horizon, it isn't called Horizon.
Okay. Sounds good. Do you guys sell directly from your? I didn't do my homework today, but
No, we don't. We're a distiller and an importer, and so we don't hold you know, the California craft distillers license, so we don't sell direct.
well, I'm in Arizona, so it's tougher for me anyway.
I say we do actually distribute in Arizona. Give me 1 second because let me see. Dun, dun, dun. Damon, what's your like city? And I'll
Phoenix.
Phoenix. All right.
Yeah, surface of the sun.
Yeah, I was just gonna
I'm-
say that. Aren't you like right adjacent to the sun this year?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's plenty of retailers and restaurants that have the Horizon. Let's see with the Bivouac. Same with the Bivouac.
Yeah, I found the Horizon easy, but the single barrel I like.
Oh, the single barrel.
I need a bottle of the single barrel.
You should be able. We do work with Total Wine and More. They
Okay.
have or not Total Wine More, excuse me, Reserve Bar. They have the gold tier single barrel. I can
Got
actually just send everyone a link to that if y'all.
Awesome.
Yeah. Our group has a tendency to go buy stuff out after a tasting, just so
And no, I love hearing that.
it's not always possible, but we do our best, so.
All right, so let me put this in the chat for everyone. So this is going directly to our Reserve Bar page with the gold tier double oak.
Nice.
It's a really good price too.
Oh, and if you go to the last picture, it's our head distiller, Kevin.
We like to do polls just to see what everybody thinks. So if not everybody's answered it, you guys are, Alex and Bruce, you're both welcome to jump on the poll as well if you like.
Oh, I can't pick.
I already answered it.
Like trying to pick your favorite child, it just doesn't work.
Well, admittedly, I mean, I got to help with the launch of the double oak and with the bivouac. So my bias would lean more towards those because I joined the company just over a year ago.
You want to take a guess on what the favorite so far has been?
I'm gonna say the double oak, but if we're going for the everyday availability between the Horizon and Bivouac, I'm probably gonna go the Bivouac.
Bruce?
I'm going Bivouac. Well,
Yeah.
I finished second.
We're kind of a high proof people.
Yeah.
Evidently.
100%.
Well, I mean, the Horizon is our lowest proof that we make. So it pretty much just goes up from there. I don't think we'll ever go higher than, I mean, I could be dead wrong. Bruce, I don't know if you and Kevin have a plan to do 145 proof at some point.
Or hazmat.
I mean, all you can plan to do by law is 125 proof going into the barrel, and then you have to have the workhouse conditions to get the alcohol up that much. So, no.
Cool. Well, that's always fun. I don't get to vote because I'm running the poll, and I would have actually had to say bivouac myself. So, there would have been 2 votes instead of everybody but 1 person. So, very
Sounds good.
excited. All right, you guys ready to jump into the rye?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
Bruce, all you, my friend.
All right. Well, first I'll just give you a little background about myself. I started working at Anchor Brewing in 1980, just out of college. And the owner of Anchor Brewing, Fritz Maytag, would occasionally talk about a desire to make rye whiskey. And, you know, for any of you that are old enough to remember, in the 80s and early 90s, you know, kind of American whiskey in general and rye whiskey specifically were just, there wasn't much popularity, and you know, but Fritz Maytag kind of liked to do things that first of all had some kind of historical story, and he was interested in rye whiskey because of during the colonial days that a lot of the original American whiskey was made from rye. And another thing that always attracted Fritz, or that he never wanted to do a project doing something that was already popular. Probably one of the reasons like Anchor never made an IPA in the 2000s, you know, because, you know, it was already being done. So the unpopularity of rye whiskey in America and, you know, just kind of American whiskey in general, that was appealing to him too. So, you know, he would occasionally mention that a desire to distill. And finally, in 1993, we got licensed and bought a still. And I switched from being a brewer to a distiller. And yeah, you know, I mean, frankly, we didn't know what we were doing. You know, being a brewer though is good training for the first part of whiskey making. You know, we knew how to mash, we knew how to handle grain, and we knew how to handle yeast. A huge advantage that we had was that Anchor Brewing really kind of supported Anchor Distilling, and we didn't have to barrel or release anything until we were happy with our distilling results. The whiskey we started making was 100% malted rye. At that time, you know, it's still a really unique mash bill, but at that time, no one was doing that. You know, all the very few limited number of rye whiskeys that were out on the market were a more traditional, you know, 55 to 60% unmalted rye, corn, and then, you know, 8 to 10% malted barley. So our rye whiskey was 100% malted rye, and it was pot distilled. Double distilled, you know, probably our distilling methods were you know, somewhat similar to a single malt Scotch distillery. We finally started putting new make into barrels in 1994, or excuse me, wait, yes, 94. Our first whiskey that we released was only 13 months old. And well, one of the big reasons with that is we're just so impatient. You know, we're beer guys. It's a real thing that you have to train yourself that, you know, you're not going like a month from brewing to bottling. You're now aging like you're doing an aged spirit. So that part was difficult, and we were so you know, kind of excited to get our first whiskey out that you know, that first whiskey went into barrels in December of 94, and it was bottled in January of 96. When we bottled that whiskey, that first old Potrero in January of 96, that was the only fully pot distilled whiskey in the United States. And we believe it was the first craft whiskey. I don't know, someone might want to disagree with that, but I'm not sure who that might be. One of the things that, you know, about being, new to distilling is I don't think we felt bound by the way other people were doing things. And, one of the big things that, that I think Fritz Maytag and our distillery brought to distilling was more attention paid to barrels. When we got into it and we finally thought we were making, new spirit that was good enough to go into barrels, we started looking around for a cooperage to buy barrels. And we found that the American whiskey industry was buying really the cheapest barrels they could. It was coarse grain, kiln dried American oak that was charred over like a propane flame. And these barrels were, they were inexpensive. Fritz Maytag, in addition to having a brewery, also had a background in wine, and he wanted to experiment with different types of oak. We did tons and tons of experimenting with the help of the cooperage that we used. And, most of that was around, fine grain, extra fine grain, American oak, and air dried wood. The standard barrel that we kind of settled on, that we use exclusively now, is 24-month air dried, extra fine grain American oak. And our charred barrels go through a full toasting regimen before they're charred. And both the toasting and charring is done over an oak fire. So they're done by hand. And we think that's kind of an important part of our flavor profile, are those barrels. And it's not like I want to trash the big American whiskey distillers. At the time, we were doing this, there weren't a lot of real high-priced whiskeys, American whiskeys, out on the market. So, like a $15, $18 bottle of bourbon back then, that price didn't really support spending, 4 times more on a barrel. So, I think we all liked, what was coming out of the big American distilleries, but that was kind of the reality then. And knowing that we were going to sell our product for more, kind of allowed us this ability to experiment with that. To kind of go forward to the present time, over the years, as we became established, we gradually increased the age of our whiskeys. We have straight rye whiskey now that we redesigned our package about a year ago. Alex, help me with that. When did we redesign the package?
So we launched, this is one of the single barrels, but for those of y'all that can see me talking, this was launched June of last year. So it has just hit a year and a month, basically, since the package redesign. One of the things that we really wanted to take care in bringing a connection to San Francisco, considering we are founded and have remained in San Francisco, was a few different aspects. Obviously, if you're looking at the logo, you see the pot still and the Golden Gate Bridge, but some of the other characteristics that stand out are, if you look at the bottom of the label, there's these notches. And what those are in reference to are the original trolley tickets for the trolleys of San Francisco. And then the back fonts outside of our label are Fog City Gothic, which is the official font of San Francisco. And then on our single barrels, our tax strip is International Orange, which is the color of the Golden Gate Bridge. So we wanted to throw in some nuance connections to Old Potrero being founded in San Francisco.
All right, so with the Old Potrero, with that package redesigned, we raised the age of our standard straight rye whiskey to 6 year, a minimum of 6 years. And that standard bottling is 97 proof. Now, the bottle that Alex is holding up is one of our single barrel whiskeys. And if you caught the handwritten stuff on that, you could see, I think that's roughly 8.5 years. I forgot, 8 years, 7 months. And it's 64.72%. So when we made this change, then, we also bumped our single barrels up to, 8.5, in a few cases, 9 years old. And again, those are cask strength, of course. We don't get the huge increase in alcohol. We don't age in San Francisco, which, you can't afford to do that. But we've aged in Sonoma County. So our barrels are in a much kind of gentler climate. We don't have the huge temperature extremes that aging whiskey barrels would have in Kentucky. So it's kind of a gentler process. Did anyone have any questions? I don't know. Should I look over here in the?
Damone, I see that you're getting, jumping ahead. I like it. I like your style, my friend.
I don't know. I mean, let's taste something. I mean,
Absolutely. So let's start with the 6-year-old.
Way ahead of you.
I've been doing that.
and I think one thing that in our opinion, that what we get from, Old Potrero is you get a certain amount of those traditional rye whiskey notes, the spiciness, and we always get like caramel and and that kind of stuff. But I think the malting really kind of brings something to it that most American rye whiskeys doesn't have, and that's a certain depth. And I find a similarity with Old Potrero to other malted barley, like single malt scotches or other single malts made out of barley, that there's a certain similarity from just the act of malting the grain. One other thing that I wanted to mention about Old Potrero is we've always used the house ale yeast that Anchor Brewing uses. And, we've done trials with distillers yeast over the years. And for us, that beer yeast gives kind of a depth and malt character and roundness that we like, and it's pleasant to us, that we don't get with other like standard distiller strains. Everyone tastes the first one.
Yeah, there's some good notes in the chat.
Yeah. Jane, so is this hitting the right palate notes for the rye for you?
I might actually have to admit that I like one. So
That's fantastic.
I suspect, as Michael was commenting on the malt, for me, I think the malted portion of the rye is probably what actually appeals to my palate, since I'm not normally a rye fan. Lots of cinnamon and that underlying apple and caramel. I mean, it's like a really good pie.
Yeah,
And then I didn't get that in the taste, right? The flavor or the taste for me just changed totally. It begged for a cigar. Felt like I needed to be outside in the wind. you know, because it got, I don't know, I was ready for that bite of an apple pie, the way the nose hit, and then it just like, hey, you got this spice bomb that's totally different than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. The nose and the flavor for me were very similar. I got a ton of stewed fruit, dark stewed fruit. I got a little bit of baking spice, but the malt really tempered that quite a bit. I totally agree with everybody's assessment that it's kind of like a pie, or but not an overly sweet pie. That's a, I wouldn't say it's my favorite flavor profile for a rye, being a traditional rye fan, but that is crazy interesting, and I did like it.
Yes, a lot going on. You have to keep on tasting. It's one of those where the third taste don't taste like the first. Drop a little water in it, like, oh, hey, there's some new flavors I didn't see a second ago, you know. Yeah,
I usually do half samples, but you're making me pour the rest of my sample out now.
Yeah. I had to finish. I had to finish it.
Michael, I gotta say, jumping on that, I got turned on an old Potrero a couple years ago. I got this K&L single barrel 2 or 3 years ago at 62%. I'm not gonna say it's the best bottle I got that year, but I fought people and said it's the most interesting bottle I got that year. It was like, and just what you're saying, it was at the time in my whiskey journey where I sort of tried a lot of things, and I was like, all right, like who's doing something good that's a little different? And I came out there like, try this, and I was like, what the fuck, you know, like, and I don't go to it every day. I mean, it's, if you know how much I drink, for it to be around 2 or 3 years later, I don't drink it every day. I'm not going to claim to, but I don't want to finish this bottle because it's a single barrel, and I don't want it to go away. I have 3 or 4 barrels right now. I have K&L's new one, but this original one that I got a couple years ago was just one of the most interesting bottles I have in my collection. I really love it.
Sounds like we need to do an old Potrero tasting at your house.
You're always welcome. Come on.
Think you'll have to hide that
Jordan
bottle.
always has some hidden gems at his house.
I always got a couple.
Hell, come to my house. I got a bunch of it.
I'll do that.
We actually, so Bruce, tell them a little bit about the 17-year-old that is not out anymore, but that has such a unique story behind it.
Yeah, you know, when we started distilling, you know, again, I mean, we were new to distilling, and it was a different world then too, because distilling was pretty much, you know, maybe not with fruit-based stuff, but for you know, whiskey distillers were all big companies, and so there wasn't really a lot of access to information. And so when we started, we got new charred barrels, we got new toasted barrels, and we got used bourbon barrels, Heaven Hill barrels. And we made whiskey and we put them in all 3 barrels. And you know, our production was really small. When we started, we double distilled, but we only had 1 still. So we would do wash distillations. We would mash and do wash distillations until we ran out of tank space to put low wines in. We would scrub the still out really well, and we'd switch over to spirit distillations until we ran out of low wines. And then we'd go back to mashing and wash distillations. And so we weren't producing very much. And you know, we were kind of looking for quick results, you know, seeing what we liked. And we found that early on, we liked, with this young whiskey, we liked the new charred oak and the new toasted oak better than the used bourbon barrels. But we kept tasting it. We had this batch of barrels, I think about 35 barrels or something of used bourbon barrels. And, you know, we'd taste them every 3-4 times a year. And it was some point when that whiskey got to about 8.5 years, that we thought, we really blew it because we quit putting whiskey into into used once used bourbon barrels. It when it got to that point, it really changed and it really matured, and it was really a beautiful whiskey. So we had this whiskey that we were kind of sitting on, and as we were coming up to the 100th anniversary of the 1906 earthquake in 2006, Fritz Maytag came up with this idea to to release this whiskey, and at that point it was going to be an 11-year-old, to release this whiskey that was aged in used bourbon barrels. And that's where the current name of our company, Hodling, came from, because we called it Hodling Old Potrero. And Hodling was this whiskey. Yeah, they were really to fire a bottler. They didn't distill, but there's kind of a famous story in San Francisco that during the 1906 earthquake, really more damage was done by the fire following the earthquake. And the Hodling whiskey warehouse, which was full of aging barrels, was right in the heart of it. And there was this kind of superhuman effort to save the whiskey warehouse during the fire that followed the earthquake. And on the back of our Hodling, we have this little poem that someone at the time wrote. And, people at the time, like journalists around the country, were saying that the 1906 earthquake was God's retribution because of San Francisco being such a kind of a wicked city. It was kind of a immoral city.
I actually have the poem if you want to hear it.
Yeah, go ahead. You read it.
Yeah, Charles K. Field. If as they say, God spanked the town for being overly frisky, why did he burn the churches down and save Hodling's whiskey?
So anyway, yeah, the churches burned down, but the whiskey warehouse survived. Anyway, we released that whiskey as an 11-year-old, and we had a real limited amount. We would release a barrel, maybe 2 every year until it ran out. The final bottling we did was as an 18-year-old. We didn't find huge differences between it as an 11-year-old and an 18-year-old, and since then we don't have very much of it. Down the road we'll have a little bit more, but we've released it as an 11-year-old since then. But we're not tasting that, so I don't know why we went down this road and told you that whole story, but what the heck.
For fun.
Of course.
Yeah, there you go.
Definitely fun.
Maybe you want to pour the second one, which is a single barrel straight rye whiskey. And I'm not sure which single barrel you guys have.
Jane did, I think I sent y'all, it was either 7-year, 8 months, or an 8-year, 3 months.
I'm trying to see if I could figure it out by looking at the picture.
Oh,
Does it have a barrel ID on it? Like OP and then a number with a dash?
Let's see. It is 11, 14, 12. I think bottle number 213 or something. 7 years, 10 months.
Okay.
It's just a picture of the front, so I don't know what's on the back of it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
no, that's everything that we would need.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just, and did you mention the proof?
I did not. It is 131.4.
All right. Well, I don't have that one, so you'll have to tell me about it.
Yeah, I think people are about to head outside for cigars with this one.
Yeah.
Hats off to those of you in Phoenix who might go outside to smoke. Don't.
You know what? I put a mister on my porch. It was that or never go outside until,
10 p.m.
November.
I don't want to
I
make
do
you
not
jealous,
envy
but
Phoenix.
it's 59 degrees at my house.
I was just in LA last week, and although I can say it got to 78, 80 degrees over there in the South Bay, and I sweat way more than I did here when it was 108.
Yeah.
It's the dry heat.
The dry
Humidity.
heat.
All that humidity over here.
I mean,
That is,
I should be good with this. I'm originally from North Carolina, and
oh,
it's been, yeah. I mean, I just
Where
can't, my
James
body
is
can't
from.
take it anymore.
yeah, 100 degrees in North Carolina is like 180.
Yep. I mean, it's what I imagine if you were walking through butter in a suit.
Walking
It's
through
like-
butter in a suit. Well, I mean, it's 8 o'clock, no sun, and it's 1:11 right now where we're at. So when we started the meeting and I said we were adjacent to the sun, I meant it.
That's a hard pass for me, Damon. Hard pass.
Yeah, I mean, what's the joke? It's like you shouldn't go outside between like 10:30 in November.
Well, the sad part about it is we went, me and my wife went to play bingo yesterday, and as we're leaving, I don't know, it's 10 o'clock. It probably was still 101, 102 degrees. And we're like, man, this is nice.
As long
Bring a
as no one
sweater.
asks, as long as no one asks.
If the sun is not out,
Do I need a coat?
right?
Damon, I gotta say, man, you don't have to live in Phoenix, right?
Right? I could have moved up north where it don't ever get this high, but it's all right. I have a swimming pool. As soon as I get off with y'all, me and my wife might roll into it, but it's only 2.5, 3 months if it's a long summer, but it doesn't last that long, and the rest of the year makes up for
Touche.
So now I have a
You found
question
this to
about
be a
this
lot
whiskey.
sweeter?
it.
It's like, just
You have a
direct
whiskey question there?
back into the whiskey here.
Yeah,
What is different? I mean, aside from the fact that this is a single barrel, this is a lot sweeter than the 6-year. It still has some of the same spice. I mean, the flavors are very different, but why is this one in particular sweeter? Is it just a different mash bill? Is it
No,
just what it was
it's-
barreled in? Just like
these are
that one
all-
perfect bottle?
Yeah, these are all 100% malted rye. Yeah, they take on a little more of the the wood sugars, and that charred barrel kind of kicks in a little more. Though
what's the age on this one? Or the youngest, I guess.
I think Jane needs it was 7 years, 10 months on the single
Yeah.
barrel.
Yeah, 7 years, 10 months.
Yeah, and that's kind of most of our single barrels are about 8 years. A few of them are just below 8, and a few are above 9, but it's pretty much
In
just
that 8 range.
yeah. We do a fairly small amount of single barrels, so it's just tasting. I'm able to taste all the individual barrels, and it's nice for the single barrel that you kind of look for barrel variation, to have some different things out there.
Yeah, this is very, very different taste in the 6-year, to me anyway. It's a little hotter. Obviously, that's probably the ABV, but it's still smooth. Yeah, it's still really smooth.
No, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, this could get me in trouble.
I was gonna say, wait until you try the port. So just as a,
55.7 and a block of ice and I'll be in trouble.
so just as a little tidbit for y'all, when you try the port, whatever amount you pour out into your glass, my suggestion is taste it and then let it sit and breathe a bit, because you'll get different flavors as they open up.
Do we need some dark chocolate?
If you have it, be my guest.
Anytime I go wine tasting, every time we try a port, they give us a piece of dark chocolate.
Now for our port finish, you know, as a small producer, buying like used port or sherry barrels through brokers is kind of a difficult proposition, because it's really kind of hard to tell what you're going to get. With these port barrels, we were lucky that Fritz Maytag, who, you know, retired in 2010, also has a vineyard in on Spring Mountain in St. Helena, and he grows port varieties. And he's mainly has always, you know, he's owned it since the late 60s, and but he's primarily a grower. But he has made wine over the years from 2000 to when he sold Anchor Brewing and Distilling in 2010. He had a winery here in San Francisco, across the street from the brewery and the distillery. So anyway, the advantage for us is that when we get port barrels from Fritz's winery, is we get wet barrels. We get them like these I got the day that they were dumped for bottling. You know, he'll call me up and he'll say, you know, and he's doing real small lots. He'll say, you know, I have 12 barrels that I'm gonna dump. If you want them, come and get them. And so it's really nice. And you know, kind of our philosophy has been with barrel finishes is we're really interested more in what the barrel previously held, and we're not looking for much in the way of wood influence. You know, this is fully aged whiskey, and so you know, in general, we do kind of a short period of time in the finishing barrels, usually like maybe 6, 7, 8 months. This particular port barrel was kind of an exception. We left it in longer, and you know, we're still experimenting. We didn't start doing you know, finishing barrels until about 5 or 6 years ago. And you know, we've done port, sherry, we've done Cabernet, Chardonnay, and then, you know, like a beer barrel, stuff like that. But you know, in my opinion, I've liked port. You know, some of the things I've tasted where bourbon distillers are using port barrels as a finishing barrel, in my opinion, the sweetness of the bourbon and the sweetness and fruitiness from the port is kind of too much. And I think that rye whiskey is more of a natural fit with port barrels, because it kind of has that you know, backbone firmness to kind of stand up to the port and complement it. So so anyway, this one was done in a French oak port barrel that was wet. So there was quite a bit of port influence on this.
So I was just curious, are all of your ryes 100% malted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a really, for me, as not so much a rye fan, this is a really interesting mixture because I do really love a good port. And I'm not actually getting it as overly sweet. It's got a lot of really interesting notes in it from both the rye and the, assuming the wet barrel portion of the port. It's really wonderful.
Oh,
I'm like, you're 2 for 3,
you.
guys.
Fantastic.
Maria was wondering, do you reuse the port cask?
Not for whiskey. We've got, you know, we've put some other experiments that have never been released, just stuff we're playing around with. So yeah, we've reused them, but you know, no, we really want that port influence. So we haven't reused any of the port casks at this point. We did reuse, we had a stout finished barrel that kind of had, and we did a release of that, of stuff finished in a stout cask. And that one kind of had a kind of an interesting story in that it was just a regular old Potrero charred barrel that we then finished an apple brandy that we had made in it. We aged it in those once used charred barrels that held old Potrero. And then we gave it to the brewery side at Anchor, and they aged a fairly high gravity, high alcohol stout in it for about a year. And then we took it back and did a barrel finish. And unfortunately, I don't think we will ever be able to duplicate that, but it was really good. And what was interesting is you could definitely get like the stout influence, but you could also still taste the apple brandy. It was an interesting experiment, and you know, totally a one-off. We'll never be able to do it again, but or we could, I guess.
Terribly intrigued and very sad.
Yeah.
I want to, before everybody finishes all this marvelous whiskey, invite everyone that's not on camera to come back on so we can take a quick photo. So I just want to say thank you both. You know, we're obviously not done yet, but I wanted to do this before we forgot. It's our tradition to take a quick picture of everybody saying cheers. God, you can't even see my glass.
Better not show the beer fest.
Mine's a Seagram's VO glass.
I was gonna say, this is the closest I have to a Glencairn at my house, so.
Yeah.
I've learned to position it right in front of me.
Yeah, I always said, I got it. Thank you guys. I always have to roll the glass around and stick my finger over the label because I don't have any that aren't branded.
Oh, no, don't worry. We don't take it personally. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a glass that helps you enjoy a whiskey that you love, that's really what matters. We do always hope that it's Hirsch or Old Potrero, but.
Oh, so send us some glasses and they will be.
I'll look into that.
A couple quick questions. One, the commemorative distilling you guys talked about for the fire that was 11 to 18 year, was that bottled in bond? And if I were to, in theory, see a 17-year online right now for sale for 150, you're saying that's a pretty good deal? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was bottled in bond. It's 100 proof.
And then two, I mean, so the elephant in the room with Anchor Steam, I know you guys are no longer associated with it, but with the announcement of what's happening with them, do you want to talk about that at all, or what do you think is going to happen?
Now,
Have
well,
to?
let me tell you kind of what happened with the company. Fritz Maytag bought Anchor Brewing in 1965. As I mentioned, we added a distillery in 93, so we became Anchor Brewing and Distilling. In 2010, Fritz sold the brewery and the distillery so that he could retire. He talked for years before that about stepping back and not being as involved. And, he, that wasn't Fritz's style. He told us that. And then we would talk about it and say, geez, Fritz is here every day. Is this what he calls stepping back? So he's one of those people that to truly kind of step back, he had to sell the place. So he sold in 2010. In 2017, the group that bought from Fritz sold the brewery, Anchor Brewing, to Sapporo. At that time, Sapporo got the Anchor name, and we changed our name from Anchor Distilling to Hodling and Company. So anyway, that's kind of the so I never worked for Sapporo because I went with the distillery, and our current owners that bought both in 2010 still own Hodling. So as far as talking about it, it's kind of an emotional thing for me. One of the great things about Anchor was really the group of people we had. And I think that's what really, I've been with the company, one way or another for 43 years. And one of the things that made me want to stay and really drew me to it was really just kind of the group dynamic and the people I worked with. They were, I don't know, there was such a great team atmosphere, and really, those were the early days of craft brewing. Just kind of a determination that and this feeling that we could do whatever we wanted to, whatever we set out to do, we felt like we could accomplish it. And it was a great thing. As far as what's happened, I'd rather probably not comment on it. I don't know what's happening internally with Sapporo, and kind of their reasoning or motivations or whatever. I very much hope that somehow the kind of the core beers will continue on, that somehow they'll continue to be brewed in San Francisco, Anchor Steam, Anchor Porter, Liberty Ale, and the Christmas Ale. So we're hoping for the best. All of us, the people that are still there that I know, and all of the ex-employees, are really hoping something happens with it, that Anchor doesn't just go away. But anyhow, that's about
I
it.
saw an article in several outlets late this afternoon that the Anchor employees are putting in a bid to buy the brewery and run it as a co-op.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I guess they're throwing their bid in with a bunch of other people. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that goes. And the union came in after I was no longer part of Anchor, or after the distillery and the brewery separated. So I don't really I can't really speak to that, but it's an expensive proposition. It's the brewery, it comprises two buildings, one across the street from the other, and as you can imagine, real estate in San Francisco, just that part of it is such a, you got to make a lot of beer to kind of support that.
Yeah.
Oh, Jay, you're killing me with this. It's like, pick your favorite.
I know. That's how I roll. So I
have no problem with that. I have 3 kids and I can pick a favorite,
So
the one that I didn't have to, wait up nights and, all that stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
So I have a It's just old Potrero poll, and I can't share it because I started the other poll, so I have to turn that one off. I don't know if I can end it or if I have to pause it, so I'm just gonna let this one go for a minute and then we'll go back over it. Cause I just have to be occasionally that slightly bit evil as the MC and make sure everybody gets a little finger into the poll pie, as it were.
Right.
Do you guys have stuff coming up that you're excited about? Is there new stuff on the horizon?
Yeah, I'll talk about from the Hirsch side, Bruce, if you want to do the old Potrero side. So we do have another gold tier barrel that will be coming up later this year. This one's going to be a little bit older than the 8 years. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And then we'll also be releasing another tier version, a little slightly different. I can't go into too much detail about it, but there's going to be 2 new single barrels that are coming out for Hirsch. And you should expect them hitting the market anywhere between September and October.
Can you say what state any of them were distilled in?
I'm sorry?
Can you say what states, like the more than 8 year was, is that a?
It should be another Kentucky. Bruce, you want to handle
Can you be more specific than just Kentucky? All right, yeah, old Potrero, we're excited that, we're kind of in the midst of our annual single barrel program, and some of our single barrels this year will be new toasted oak in addition to charred straight rye whiskey. So that's happening. So it'll be the first release of toasted barrel single barrels, and this is toasted is something that kind of gets thrown around. A lot of people are doing something like that, but to my knowledge, just about everyone is using a toasted barrel as a finishing barrel. Our toasted barrels are is whiskey that's aged its whole life in new toasted oak. So so that's one thing. And then we're kind of expanding on barrel finishes, and we've got some somewhat unique stuff that we're going to be getting into that I'm not going to go into specifics yet about it. And then we're also we have some other stuff aging that's not 100% malted rye. I'll just leave it at that for now. So yeah, so there's some different things coming up for old Potrero.
So the new toasted oak, is that going to be our new 18th century?
Yeah, except traditionally the 18th century was we always released it as a really young whiskey. Our age statement for the toasted or the 18th century, and we're kind of going away from calling it 18th century since a lot of people just found it confusing, so but they were toasted barrels. But the age statement on that was 2.5 years. And we're kind of moving, like for the single barrel toasted barrels, around 7 to 8 years, maybe a few in a little below 7, but kind of radically older than we always released the 18th century in the past.
So we hope that y'all give some of this a try.
Do you guys have? I try to go up every year for a Cal game, football or basketball. Do you like distillery tours, and do you guys have a shop or anything, or is it not really like that?
Yeah, we don't. We're kind of working. when Sapporo bought Anchor in 2017, we had a 3-year lease to continue at our distillery at the brewery. So we moved out of Anchor at the end of 2020. We're now at Pier 50 in San Francisco. And we're kind of working on a space that probably initially won't be kind of a public space. It'll be for events, kind of private, probably more like accounts and distributors and that kind of thing. Yeah, we're not really set up now for tours, but we hope in the future that you know, we'll eventually have something.
That's the goal. Something that we could, I mean, being in Pier 50, if you're familiar with the San Francisco Bay Area, we're basically in between Oracle Park and the Chase Center.
Sounds like fun. And you guys want to take a guess on what was the favorite of just the old Potrero portion of the tasting?
The single barrel.
I'm going port.
There's some love everywhere.
Ooh. There you go.
Port
Love to see
cask
it.
by one vote over the single barrel. So, and then let's see here.
It's going to be the Hirsch single barrel, because the single barrel Old Potrero and the port finish are going to split the vote. I know how these elections go.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Alex, for the overall for the night?
Ooh, I'm going to show some love to the port.
Okay. Really interesting split. We had three for
Even
the
on the Hirsch
first and
single
3 for
barrel.
the Old
Wow.
Potrero single barrel. A couple of people for the port cask. I think a couple of people were away from the screen and didn't get to vote, so.
Well, I think
Mike-
is that
Michael's enjoying that cigar.
is that
Sorry about that.
Is that a first time like even for one of these?
It's pretty rare that we get an even split on it. It has happened, but it's usually pretty rare. There's
Well, I'm
usually,
happy to be a part of it then.
there's usually one usually kind of takes over. So,
Yeah, I didn't get to vote, but my vote would have been for the Hirsch single barrel. Sorry about
yeah, I have to redo the poll if I do that, Ken.
that. Well, now you can just call it a win for the Hirsch single barrel, since I'm letting you all know.
There you
That
go.
would've put it
Well,
over
then
the
we'll
top.
just add that in, so. Awesome.
I got another question for Bruce.
Yes.
Favorite whiskey that you don't make?
Oh God. That's more like, you know, what's your favorite kid? I mean,
Yeah,
you know, I really like for big American whiskeys, I really like Wild Turkey and Russell Reserve. To me, I like the yeast they use. I kind of like that just kind of their house character appeals to me. God, it's hard. I'm a big fan of Cavalon. You know, a bunch of different Scotch. Yeah, so I don't know. That would be my
nobody from Kentucky will ever say that. That's nice to hear you
what's that?
branch out. Nobody
Yeah.
from Kentucky will ever say that. It was nice to hear you branch out.
Yeah. But yeah, I
actually
do
have-
like I like you know, the just the Wild Turkey stuff, Russell Reserve.
I
And I
agree with
always
you on that.
thought kind of early on, one of the first whiskey fests we did, we were next to Jimmy Russell, and I thought, damn, now that's a master distiller. I mean, that's you know, like Central Casting sent that guy over. So
I'm a big turkey fan too.
Yeah,
So
real nice
yeah.
guy, he real good guy, and I like their whiskey. So
Yeah, but Jimmy took over running distillery. You started from the bottom.
yeah.
I think you've got a few more points there.
You guys have any
Cigar
more?
worked well. The cigar worked well with the port finish.
No, that's good
and-
to hear.
And others will tell you that I'm not a finished fan. So I figured if I'm gonna drink the finish, it's gonna be with a cigar.
Are you really outside now?
Yeah, it's only like 81 here.
Where
It's
are
not too
you?
bad. Whittier, California, so Southern
Oh, yeah.
California.
Yeah, I know where it is. My youngest just graduated from UC Irvine, so I know.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah,
not too far.
the
Like
neighborhood.
40 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely warmish out there, but it's not unpleasant. It's not like living on the sun like Damone does, so.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
I
doing
can live with the-
57 here now.
Yeah,
No, we're pretty
Gotta
mild.
go get a hoodie.
Yeah, I'm mildly jealous of your weather. I got to be honest. I don't do well in the heat. So
And speaking of, I heard in the news yesterday, Phoenix did not get below 97. So it's like the
Dude.
hottest.
Yeah, it's the hottest 15 days, I think.
Yeah, like there's various ways to measure hot, but if you measure it by like how the average, it's the hottest day ever.
nobody has to live there. I don't understand.
Listen, I live on the west side of LA. You're speaking, I could live here. I live in the East Bay, so
yeah, there's reasons I don't live in the middle of the valley.
Yeah,
I live on
exactly.
the edge of
I
the
used-
valley.
I used to live in the middle of the valley. I used to live in Winnetka. Well, I guess that's the west end of the valley.
Mhm.
Yeah, I used to live there, and it's too hot. Now I'm in the San Gabriel Valley. It's the right valley to be in.
Yeah. Well, I want to, Bruce and Alex, I want to thank you both so much for joining us tonight. This was fantastic. Some great whiskeys. I think everybody's going to be looking up a few of these and looking forward to some of the new stuff you guys are teasing out for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I'm not going to
I do-
kick anybody out, but I do want to stop the recording if you guys want to say anything before I stop.
Yeah, sure. Definitely just want to give y'all I'm gonna send, here's the old Potrero website, and then I'll send the Hirsch whiskey. So if you go into each one of these sites and then do like find store, just type in your zip code, and you'll see a variety of options, and we'll list both retailers, bars, and restaurants near you that carry us. So, we might be in your backyard that you can go to, your local bar and get an old Potrero cocktail or a Hirsch cocktail. And we hope that you come back and taste us again.
Heck yeah.
How can I get in contact with you?
With me?
Yes.
Yeah. Here, I can send, here's my email. If I can type it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if any of y'all have questions, feel free to reach out. Just an FYI, I'm in the process of getting ready to launch a big program, so I might be not the most responsive at the moment, but I will do my best.
You're not very good for a marketing person.
Yeah, I can put my email if it's like, don't ask me where to buy the whiskey because if anyone has anything you want to talk about whiskey, give me about 10 minutes and I'll type in my I do it. I did it. There
You
I go.
got it. Awesome.
Very nice.
Well, fantastic. You guys, this was really wonderful. And I have to tell you, I'm kind of shocked that I actually like the rye. So
Hey, we'll take that as a big, big victory.
I think we're all shocked.
I think everybody's shocked when I like a rye, so.
What are the other ryes that you like?
The first one that I tried that I actually liked was a cherry wood smoked rye from Sonoma.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I liked the no, I used to have a list of it and I cleaned my desk and now I can't find it, so I have no idea. We did a barrel pick with Starlight with an apple brandy barrel finished rye that I actually bought a bottle of and I didn't hate. There was a Wilderness Trail that I liked. Gosh, someone else might remember better than I do at this point, because apparently I don't have a clue what I've drunk in the last 3 years. So,
Well, I don't blame you on the Wilderness Trail, Jane. They make some pretty awesome stuff.
yeah,
They're another new distillery that's just killing.
yeah.
Newish.
There have been a few that it's like I didn't hate them. I realize that's damning people with faint praise. I didn't hate it. I wouldn't necessarily buy it.
Tolerable. Yeah.
It's tolerable. Yeah,
It's
no,
okay,
there's
baby steps.
yeah, baby steps. There's a lot of them that I have liked. You know, I would
You're
rather buy
generally not a fan. You're
generally not a fan. I'm
95.5.
more of an Irish and Scotch fan. Bourbon has become fascinating to me. Rye is sort of lagging behind, but it'll get there maybe eventually. Maybe not, you know, I don't like rye bread either. So it's not your whiskey, it's the grain. So, but the malted rye, I think I might actually prefer over just.
Yeah, it's definitely got a different character, you know, than
That's for sure.
unmalted.
Yeah,
That's for
definitely
sure.
different. So something to.
Great job, Jane.
Peter, too.
Jane, great job.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Jane.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
And if you guys want to hang out, I'll share some upcoming stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.